Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Stephanie Fee with us. Steph is founder and ghostwriter at the Wild Larynx. She had a cool career, was mentored by Dan Sullivan in her early years. It's quite impressive. So she worked basically at Strategic Coach in 2003. I was impressed by that. And started a couple of companies since then. Some succeeded, some failed. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about psychedelics and a bunch of other interesting topics. This pod is brought to you by podpire.com if you want to start and scale your podcast. Steph, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and the Wild Larynx.
Thanks. I'm super happy to be here. The Wild Larynx is just that. It's exploration of voice and how to find that authentic way of narrating an expression in a very natural way, so that we don't have to feel so afraid to stand up and speak.
There you go. Your last startup, what happened there? What did you learn from it?
Yeah, honestly, I think it was too forced. When I think about it now and the way that things have opened up for me in this other vein, so almost unexpectedly, I consider that all I do every day now is about my passion and what I'm really good at. And these were values and strategies that were actually presented to me at the ripe age of 23 years old, when I was so fortunate to get the job as a program consultant with Strategic Coach. But it took me the path through entrepreneurship, actually doing that myself, meant that, it's a whole different ball game when it comes down to it. So honestly, I think I succumbed to the pressure in a way that I forgot why I was really there, and became very frustrated and honestly unhappy when I started the company on pure passion and my health journey story. So.
And what was that one about? It was in the wellness space?
Yeah, so we started in the pandemic. I had already been designing the company as a framework that could help anyone sustain their health and well-being, particularly springing from my own, I guess you would call it, like burnout, sort of crisis, back in 2015. And I had physical and mental, emotional transformation that needed to happen. And so I built a framework, and I was the first test, and then tested that with over 140 people. It was really a beautiful experience. But then a founder split happened, or I wanted her to potentially be a partner. That split was really devastating. And pretty much from that point on, just everything felt like consistently it was just one hardship after the other, and then it drove me into feeling my own hardships, bootstrapping, and just sometimes it was like, how do I get through the day? But I did get through the day, and that was pure resilience and knowing that you just got to get up and you got to keep going, and you can't let anything get in your way. And failure, I mean, I don't really think it was a failure. It was everything that contributed to my success now. But the company didn't work out, so it was a failure.
Yeah, well, I started around 60 companies and more than 80% were failures, if not 85, So guess you learn quite quickly that, yeah, no such thing as failures. You sort of strap your belt with heads and move on, from the next adventure. It's quite hard out there. And if you don't learn to convert that pain into pleasure, yeah, it becomes quite impossible. What are the symptoms usually of quote unquote burnout, and how can we prevent from getting there?
Yeah, so the way that I see it now is that it's like stored energy in the body, and that can be from lack of emotional release, right? And so to be honest, for me, and this isn't what I taught at knock or what the framework was, but for me personally, I would say the work that I do now is so incredibly healing, because when we release the things that we're hiding or holding back, particularly our lived experiences and the stories, there's so much lightness that happens. And so I think burnout is honestly like this stress and tension from like holding all of it in and just like this so tightly wound. And the stress just piles up and piles up and piles up. And if you're like me, you know, eventually I was just like, I hit the floor literally, and like just was absolutely like at rock bottom. Or it can just be that you feel very stressed, tired, and you need, you know, a reset. But I think there's probably, you know, various levels of burnout.
And how can one get up from that? Did you use plant medicine to get back in the arena?
Oh, that's a good question. I have used plant medicine as a healing modality in a guided format. I believe that, you know, psilocybin, I should say, in particular, and then other plant medicines that are not psychedelic as well. I went on a very exploratory journey of wanting to try different things to release a lot of what I knew that there was a lot of, you know, various things holding me back and making me feel sick. And so plant medicine was definitely something that I remember the first time that I did a guided work. I was like, whoa, this is like 100 therapy sessions just happened in one night. And you know, I really felt like that was a springboard for the next level of my personal development for sure.
Well, lucky you if that felt like therapy, because therapy feels good to me. And yeah, ayahuasca, I mean, I was puking and puking and puking. And then feeling good finally. So, and yeah, that did multiple interesting substances. They were all different. 5-MeO DMT, for example, I cried for I started laughing for 15 minutes and then I cried for the other 15. So it's always interesting, you know, what these substances, how they interact with your biochemistry and how that biochemistry affects your thoughts and your feelings and all of that resurfaces. But in most of these trips, I find that there's always a pain period that I need to get through, right? And with time and wisdom, I think nowadays it's like, yeah, it's part of the trip, you know, but if you engage into these things, don't expect, you know, everything to be all rosy, you know, it might be quite challenging actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you shared that. That's really, really important, I think, just in terms of developing yourself or making the most out of your existence or doing that thing that, you know, you're taking that huge risk. There's always pain. And the pain is actually where the beauty is. It's where it's like all concentrated in this what we perceive as pain. And when we really look at that, we understand what we're really made of. And it's something so much more and more beautiful. It's like, you know, the fertilizer, right? You know, so I like that you mentioned that, because it's not just like some easy. I cried profusely, and I tend to release in that way. You know, I release tension through tears often. So yeah, thanks for sharing. And also the laughing. That's it. It's kind of the duality of like, you know, laughing hysterically and then bawling the next minute, moving the emotions around you.
Right. What does your daily routine looks like nowadays to take care of yourself?
Ooh, I honestly sort of ditched any kind of you know, prescriptive way of being. So the biggest thing is I get up in the morning and I really just like feel into what is it that's going to be most effective for me today. I tend to kind of know that now that I've tried so many things. And then I just kind of grab from my menu of habits. So lately I've been doing cold plunge every single day. I did Wim Hof training about a year and a half ago. And I really love, and I've loved cold plunging for a long time, but that training was very helpful. So I do a cold plunge every day, meditation, and get some sunlight. And honestly, I've been taking my dog to the dog park, and it's quite therapeutic. So that's how I've been starting my day lately. And from there, again, I just prioritize, and it's all kind of intuitive. I don't really work on a rigid system. I do block my days and organize things, but with writing, it's very energetic. So like you can't force the story. You have to really allow like great sleep to happen and wake up with clarity. And then all of a sudden, it's like the flywheel of focus hits. So yeah.
And where can people find out more about you, Steph?
They can find me at thewildlarynx.com or on Instagram at Stephanie Lynn V or on my LinkedIn profile.